Thank you, Corda. I move amendment number 7 in my name. Minister, this is an amendment that I flagged at second stage. And again, look, you know, I'm using this as a vehicle to raise the issue, and I hope that you can consider it. I accept that it is not good practice to include reports in primary legislation, but it is the only mechanism that's available to us. So, look, Section 20 of the Bill, Minister, makes provision for income disregards for farm schemes. And I think, look, we all welcome that. It is very constructive. The objective behind it is to try and encourage farmers to participate in many of the different farm schemes, and the list is being updated in terms of the legislation that's in front of it. And, you know, what we want to try and do is see low-income farmers supplement their income, but take on board environmental measures that not only benefit their own farm, but benefit our water quality, benefit our environment generally, and benefit and reduce our overall emissions profile. And as you know, Minister, better than most, in our part of the country, the age profile of suckler farmers in particular, and beef farmers, is quite high. If we are going to bring about innovation, reduce the overall carbon footprint of that sector of agriculture, then that will only happen if we can significantly reduce the age profile of those particular farmers, encourage younger farmers into agriculture to get access to that land, to carry out the type of measures and alteration of farm practices that actually reduces the carbon footprint of those particular farms. Now, I accept, Minister, under the Social Welfare Code, in terms of where it is a son or daughter of the retiring farmer that continues the practice of farming, there isn't an issue in terms of the Social Welfare Code at the moment. The difficulty arises, though, Minister, and you know them and I know them, of the farmer that doesn't have a son or daughter who is leasing out that particular land. And, you know, they're left in the dilemma. If they lease out the farm, have a stranger come in and work their farm, where they have no control over it, every single cent that is generated in that farm lease is deducted from their non-contributory old age pension. Every single cent. So there is absolutely no incentive for farmers in receipt of the non-contributory old age pension where they don't have a successor to actually lease out their land. So we all know what they do. They continue to slobber along, continuing to do what they've always done, what their parents before them have done, and the generation before that has done. And that is having an impact on the overall emissions profile of our suckler herd across the country, bringing down the carbon efficiency of the herd right across the country. So what I want, Minister, is for you to look at this particular cohort of farmers, of older farmers, and see if we could put some incentive in place for them to actually lease out their land. So we're saying that if farmers go into various agricultural schemes, that there's a disregard in relation to that. If that farmer was to go out and work, there's a €200 disregard for them. However, if they actually lease that land to a young, progressive farmer, where we reduce the carbon footprint of that particular farm holding, we're saying we give them absolutely no credit whatsoever for that. Now, there's something wrong in the system that doesn't give some acknowledgement for that. And in fairness, the Social Welfare Code is recognising the need to encourage farmers to improve their carbon efficient profile, to improve the environmental sustainability of it, and that's set out in Section 20. What I'm asking you to do is to look at the issue of leasing land, that there would be some encouragement given. I accept that you're not going to waive the full value of it. I'm not asking that the full value of it be waived, but if a proportion of that was waived, you know, even half of the disregard for someone that goes out working, even if it was €100 a week of a disregard, that at least would be some incentive to encourage them to actually set that land and improve the emissions profile of that particular holding. So I'd hope, Minister, that you can ask your officials to look at this. I don't think it's a huge cohort of people that's involved in it, but it would make a significant difference in terms of the emissions profile of our overall suckler herd.
Brian Stanley, please.
Speaking in support of Amendment 8 in relation to the extension of the fuel allowance scheme, just in relation to the fuel allowance scheme, Minister,
That's Brian, that's the next one.
Oh, sorry, it's the next one, is it? My apologies. Sorry.
I got to Gan Corla. Just to say thank the Deputy Naughten for raising this issue with me. Look, I fully understand the points you're making, and I do accept that the age profile of the suckler herd owners is increasing, and there are challenges there, and I think that we have to try and address some of those challenges so that young people can get an opportunity. And I know that you want to see the income disregard introduced for older farmers who lease their land out, and you raised that at second stage. As you are aware, Deputy, the bill extensively extends the list of agri-environment schemes that attract a disregard for the Farm Assist scheme and state pension non-contributory. The measure supports the Government's climate change agenda and will act as an incentive to farmers to participate in these schemes. The measure also extends the list of environmental schemes that attract a disregard in a corresponding way to the Farm Assist change for the state pension non-contributory scheme. The measure in the bill will therefore support older and younger farmers availing of these grants. I do commit, Deputy, to carrying out a report on increasing the disregard for leasing land for the state non-contributory pension and Farm Assist, and you'll be aware, of course, that the rent per acre of land has gone up in value, and in order to target resources at those most in need, we could not ignore the rental income from leasing the land entirely. I take your point, Deputy, that we should look at giving some disregard there, and I just want to say I don't want to, and you'll understand that, I don't want to put this into legislation, but I give you a commitment here. I will do this report. You have my word on it, and I'll do it so that we can take account of it ahead of the next budget.
Just to thank the Minister for her comments. And look, Minister, all I'm asking you to do is to think in your own local area. Your predecessor here, the late Deputy Seymour Crawford, he's probably looking down on us tonight, would be telling you to have a look at this. All I'm asking is, in terms of these farmers, they're not going into these schemes. These particular farmers are not going into the schemes. A lot of them do not want to have anything to do with paperwork. A lot of them probably aren't even in getting their area-based payments at all. And what we just want is to see that succession in relation to land getting into the hands of young people. I don't want a complete disregard in relation to, I'm not looking for that, but some small acknowledgement of the environmental benefit of actually transferring that land into a young progressive farmer, even if it's a condition of a long-term lease, that it's not 11-month land, you know, but some acknowledgement, I think, would go a long way. And I thank you for your comments, and in light of that, I'm withdrawing the amendment.
Amendment withdrawn. Is it agreed that Section 20 stand part of the bill? Agreed. Section 21, Amendment number 8, Deputy Naughten. To move the amendment.
I move Amendment number 8. Minister, again, this is an issue that I raised at second stage, and it's on foot of a constituent that I'm personally dealing with at the moment, a constituent of Deputy Grants as well. And the constituent in question, her husband is in receipt of a contributory state pension. She's getting the qualified adult allowance and she's getting the half-rate carers allowance. That is the only income that's coming into that household. But the difficulty is, under the fuel allowance scheme as it is currently drafted, the half-rate carers allowance is considered income. Now, if this woman's husband hadn't paid PRSI and he was in receipt of the non-contributory old age or state pension, and she was receiving again the qualified adult allowance and the half-rate carers allowance, they would be entitled to the full fuel allowance. But on top of that, she could actually go out and earn up to €200 a week and still be getting the fuel allowance, sorry, €120 a week, and still be getting the fuel allowance. So here we have a situation where people that are paying PRSI are actually significantly worse off because of this particular anomaly, where the carers allowance, the half-rate carers allowance, is considered income under a contributory pension, but it's not considered income under a non-contributory pension in terms of eligibility for the fuel allowance. So it is an anomaly within the system. It is discriminating against a couple whose only income, there isn't any other income coming into the household other than what's coming in from your own department. So there's no supplementary income coming in, but because they're in receipt of the half-rate fuel allowance, that is considered income. So if it's not considered income on the non-contributory state pension, it should also be treated similar in terms of the state contributory pension, and the half-rate carers allowance should not be considered as income there either, and ensure that that particular couple would receive the fuel allowance the same as everyone else. Now, I believe there's probably only a relatively small number of people that would fall under this particular anomaly. I don't think there's a big cost involved in relation to it, and I would ask you, Minister, if you could look at addressing this particular anomaly in the context of the bill that's before us at present.
Thank you, and thank the deputies, Deputy Naughten and Deputy Curran, for raising the issue. Just to say that I understand why we need to do this report. First of all, that's okay. And can I just say that I'm happy to do the report. I prefer not to put it in legislation. As I said, it does make it clunky, and but I'm happy to give you a commitment that I'll carry out a report on the inclusion of the receipt of the half carers allowance under the fuel allowance scheme, and I'll ask my officials to do that, and I will. I'll bring that report before the House. In terms of the fuel allowance that the deputy raised, it's currently being paid to over 365,000 households who are at most at risk of fuel poverty for 28 weeks between October and April, at an estimated cost of €300 million. As part of Budget 2022, the rate of fuel allowance was increased by €5, as you know, to €33 per week, effective from budget day. An increase in the means test threshold of €20 was also being implemented with effect from budget day, and that didn't happen before. We brought both of those. We made sure that both of those measures kicked in from budget day. And the Department of Social Protection also pays an electricity or gas allowance under the Household Benefits Scheme. The Household Benefits Package is separate from the Fuel Allowance Scheme, and a further €195 million will be spent on the scheme in 2021. Over 482,000 households will benefit from this to assist with their gas and electricity bills. And for anyone who is experiencing genuine difficulty, and I know the Deputy Curran has brought up with me the issue of a discretionary fund, But can I just say that the supplementary welfare allowance is there. There's no limit on it. It's a demand-led scheme, and it's there to help people with costs such as fuel bills that they can't afford to pay. And that's where people are genuinely in problems. And as I said, they can't afford to pay the bill from their own resources. So people can apply for this through their local community welfare officer, as you know. The government also has announced the €100 payment. And that payment will be made as soon as possible. I don't have the date, but we will do everything to get that out to people because we know they want it. So there's been a number of different changes that we have made in the budget, and we continue to support people in every way that we can. So I'll leave it at that. But just to speak specifically to this amendment, I'm happy, Deputy, to do that report, and Deputy Curran as well.
I'd rather, Minister, if you didn't, and you amended the legislation here, would be my preference, because the reality is we have a small number of carers now who are going to miss out on the fuel allowance for a full 12 months because we won't get the opportunity to look at this again. Now, I'm sure your officials, when they got the amendment last week, and I put it in plenty of time, they looked at the figures in relation to this. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I suspect we're talking about a very small number of people who would fall in under this particular category, where there's no supplementary income coming in, and where the only income is income in inverted commas is the half-rate carers allowance. Now, if the half-rate carers allowance is not considered income under the fuel allowance scheme, if you're in receipt of a non-contributory pension, why in God's name would you consider the half-rate carers allowance as income if you're in receipt of a contributory state pension? It's an anomaly there. These people are being discriminated against, and I would like to see a minister address this in the legislation that's before us. I can't bring an amendment forward, you know that, to do it. I wish I could in relation to it. I know the complexity of the issue that you now have, if you accept the principle of what I'm saying, because it's not going to be possible for you to go back to Cabinet and get that approval before you have to go into the Seanad with it, because there is a cost, a minimal cost in relation to it. But is there some way that we can actually resolve this issue for the small number of people that are being discriminated against? And it is blatant discrimination. Like, they're not in receipt of anything else that other people aren't, other than the fact that they actually paid into the social insurance fund. And because they paid into the social insurance fund, the same payments are being treated differently.
Look, it's the fuel allowance is actually it's a non-statutory scheme, so I don't need legislation. So I'll give you a commitment. I will look at it. I'll look at it and I'll see what I can do. Is that okay? And also to the other deputies. Okay.